Somewhere between earning well and retiring comfortably, something is quietly taking a cut, and it isn't your spending habits. That belief is not irrational. It is, however, incomplete. Because beneath the surface of every responsible financial habit, there is a set of structural mechanisms that quietly redistribute wealth, not through fraud, not through mismanagement, but through the ordinary functioning of the financial system itself. The assumption that responsible behavior produces proportional financial progress is one of the most persistent misconceptions among educated professionals. It appears logical because it mirrors how effort works in a career: more input, more output. But financial systems do not operate like labor markets. They operate on structural leverage, and most salaried professionals are positioned on the wrong side of that leverage without realizing it. The first hidden dynamic is monetary inflation acting asymmetrically across asset classes. When central banks expand the money supply, the effect does not distribute evenly. Asset prices, equities, real estate, private holdings absorb the new liquidity first. Consumer prices follow later. This sequencing means that individuals whose wealth is held primarily in cash savings or fixed income instruments experience real purchasing power erosion before they can reposition. The professional who saves diligently in a low-yield account is not simply earning less, they are structurally losing ground relative to those who hold appreciating assets. The system does not penalize irresponsibility, it penalizes the wrong asset allocation, regardless of the intention behind it. The second dynamic involves the compounding cost structure embedded in consumer financial products. Credit cards, car loans, and standard mortgage arrangements are not neutral tools. They are engineered instruments with asymmetric return profiles. The issuing institution earns compounding returns, while the borrower services a depreciating liability. A salaried professional carrying a standard 30-year mortgage is not simply buying a home. They are entering a contract in which the first decade of payments is weighted heavily toward interest, effectively renting the asset from the lender while the lender's balance sheet compounds. The same logic applies to revolving credit. Responsible usage does not neutralize the structural advantage held by the issuing institution. It only reduces the degree of loss. The third dynamic is the most subtle. It is the opportunity cost generated by income concentration in labor. A salary, regardless of size, is a single-stream, time-dependent income source. Every hour of capacity is allocated to one transaction. Meanwhile, capital-based income, dividends, rental yield, equity appreciation scales independently of time. The structural gap between these two income types is not a gap in effort or intelligence, it is a gap in architecture. Professionals who rely exclusively on labor income are participating in the economy on fundamentally different terms than those whose income base includes capital-generating assets. The financial system does not suppress labor income, it simply rewards capital structure at a compounding rate that labor income cannot replicate over time. The strategic shift that addresses these dynamics begins with asset allocation restructuring, moving from passive savings instruments into assets that participate in monetary expansion, even incrementally. The common mistake here is prioritizing yield over asset class. A professional seeking high-yield savings misses the structural point. The goal is not return on cash, it is exposure to assets that appreciate when liquidity expands. The second shift involves debt reclassification, distinguishing between liabilities that fund depreciating consumption and those that acquire income-generating or appreciating assets. The mistake most professionals make is evaluating debt by interest rate alone rather than by the nature of the asset it finances. The third shift is income architecture, introducing capital-based income streams alongside labor income, however modest initially. The mistake is treating this as a supplemental project rather than a structural redesign of how income is generated. The compounding effect of even a small capital-based income stream diverges significantly from zero over a 10-year horizon. Financially sophisticated individuals do not necessarily earn more or spend less. What distinguishes their trajectory is structural awareness, an understanding that the financial system has embedded incentives and that positioning within those incentives determines outcomes more reliably than discipline alone. They do not work harder against the system, they adjust their position within it. If this changed how you evaluate your financial structure, consider subscribing to Unfiltered Finance.